Hello everyone, my name is Sanya Naz and I'm from Bangalore. So this course is going to be for AWS Solution Architect and the content is going to be for over 30 hours and we are going to start with a very basic or let's say an introductory video with what AWS is or what exactly cloud computing is. Okay. So now if you see, you have really made a right decision by choosing this course and in the next 40 to 45 minutes, you will understand why. Okay, so that is why we are starting with the basic AWS introductory course, wherein we'll get to know what cloud computing means and what exactly AWS is, or what are the services provided by AWS. Okay, so without much further ado, we'll just get started with our session for today. Okay, so this is going to be an introductory video. So when I say introductory video, it is from scratch. That is, we are going to go to the roots. We are going to see how this emerged and what this cloud computing is. Then we'll be moving on to what exactly AWS is. Okay, so now this is going to be the agenda for our next 40 to 45 minutes. So before jumping into AWS, that is our Amazon Web Service, we are going to see what is the term cloud. So what exactly does the term cloud means? And then we are going to have a little bit more understanding of cloud computing. And then slowly we'll be moving on to AWS and the services provided by AWS. Okay, so now why did I include the history over here? So I would say that if you're learning some new things, let's say any technologies or anything for that matter, it's better that we get to know the root of it. That is how it emerged. Like what was the exact circumstance that brought people for this great innovation. Okay, so that is why I'll be talking a bit about the history of how it was emerged and the services provided by AWS. Okay, so now before moving on to the next slide, let's see what cloud is. Okay, so even if you don't know what that means, that's okay. We'll be here learning that for the next 40 to 45 minutes. Okay, so in general, when we hear the term cloud or when the term cloud comes in, the first thing that goes to mind is like we look up, isn't it? We look at the sky, isn't it? Because cloud means, okay, that is the cloud, isn't it? So that is what we know. So sky, we have cloud in there. So that's what the first thing comes to our mind. But no. So this cloud is something like, let's say it's been a buzzword now. It's been like for, let's say like for a few years that cloud is something that we are hearing now and then in IT, isn't it? So now what exactly does this mean? Okay, so before I get into that slide, I'll just give you a basic analogy that you can get connected with so that you will have a better understanding of cloud means. Okay, so let's say that I own a factory. Okay, I own a cookie factory. Okay, so I produce these yummy cookies and the production and everything is going really well. And every day I'm making like tons and tons of cookies. Okay, so now why am I really doing this? So that I can sell it, isn't it? So that people, the consumers can consume it, isn't it? So now after baking the cookies, if I keep it inside the factory, will it work? Or can people really get it, or will people really know that there is such cookies or such brand cookies or such yummy cookies which I bake is present in this world? Will they know that? No. If I keep it inside my factory, definitely not any person will know that. Okay, so that is the reason we bring it out to the retailers, isn't it? We sell it out in a supermarket or small shops so that people's who go like every day to purchase one or the other thing, they can buy that cookies and have it. So so that even I get revenue out of it, isn't it? So that is the whole point why I have started my own factory, isn't it? So if I bake it and if I keep it in my own factory, no one will get it. No one will know that there is something like that. So for people to have access or people to, buy that particular cookies, I have to bring it out to the people. I have to bring it out to the world, isn't it? So the same way, let's say that you are a person in IT who create application or software. Okay, so now after creating all these application and software, if you keep it with yourself, will people know that there is such of great application or software or website present? No, you have to bring it out to the people so that they can access it. So that is when our general IT infrastructure comes, or else let's say the traditional IT infrastructure. So earlier, that is your 22 years before, generally if you're creating or developing an application or a website, so the primary thing that you do is deploy it, isn't it? So once you deploy it, what happens is people can access it. isn't it? So how will you deploy it? So you'll deploy it on a server. So now again, if you don't understand the term server, I'll explain you with a small example for that too. So you must have seen many movies, right? So many movies or documentaries or many videos, isn't it? So where there in a dark room you see people, like hacking with so many things, like computer in front of them, and surrounded by them you'll be seeing all these black huge boxes, isn't it? So those boxes, those rectangle black huge boxes, are nothing but the servers. Okay, so you deploy it onto that server. Okay, so let's say that you want to work on, like, you want to create an PowerPoint presentation or a Word. So what do? So you open your laptop and you work on your laptop, isn't it? So you have a software where you can work on it and you present it on your own laptop, isn't it? So the same way, when you're creating an application, if you want to bring it to any number of people, you have to host it or deploy it onto a server. Okay, and then comes the rest of the things. Okay, let's say that you are a person who have created an messaging software, okay, or an software or like an application which is like Facebook or Instagram for that matter. Okay, so now what is the basic thing that you do when you log into your Instagram, isn't it? So you give your username, you give your password, so only then you will be able to log in, isn't it? So now to store that database, that is, to store those data, that is your username and password, you need a database. So now server is not enough, you need a container, or you need a database where it can store the details. So after logging in, the thing is, like, you scroll, you look for feeds, isn't it? So in Instagram, so that is again another set of data, an image or an audio or a video, isn't it? So that becomes another data which you need place to store, so that becomes a database. So when application is created, you need a server to deploy it, and you need a database which helps us to store and retrieve those data which you'll be uploading in your particular account, or which you have to view from others' account. So again, you need a database. And the next important thing, or the very primary thing, comes to your security, because all these data or things that you're storing, it must be secured, isn't it? No third party should be able to access it. So for that, now you have to configure your own private network or private cloud. So that is networking comes into action. And then you need to monitor it repeatedly, and you need to audit it repeatedly. So with one application, all these things come, it's complete package. So we know what and all is happening in the front end, isn't it? But what exactly is happening in the back end? So that is what your traditional IT infrastructure is. So this is what an like infrastructure, we would say. So you need a server to deploy your application, you need a database so that you can store and retrieve your data, and then you need your networking to make sure your data or your application is safe and secure from any hackers, and you need your monitoring, you need auditing, you need to verify that you need notifications. So all these system is a power packed basic traditional IT infrastructure. So this is how it used to be. Okay, so you'll deploy it into that black rectangle servers, and then again you will be having another software which is running as a database, then you will be having monitoring tools, then you will be having another router, a switch, a hub, for your other like networking protocols and everything. So this is how it used to be. So now I believe that you understand what basic traditional IT infrastructure is, right? So this is how it is. It was like until like 22 years back. Okay, and then like 20 years before, Amazon people introduced something really great. Okay, so that is what the term, or that is what we refer to cloud computing. That is a term that we call it, like cloud computing. So now whatever we used to do physically, that is whatever the infrastructure was present, physical infrastructures, that is your rectangle servers, or let it be your softwares, databases, your monitoring tools, everything, this router, switch, and everything, it became or we started to create that in a virtual space. So this cloud is nothing but building your resources on the internet, which is nothing but your virtual space. So whatever you were able to do in the exact physical infrastructure or in the real world using all these equipments, now you're able to do the same thing in cloud. So cloud is nothing but it is some softwares or services that we run on the internet instead of locally on your computer. So it is not present physically or locally on your computer. Instead, all these services that you're building or all these softwares that is getting activated is running on the internet, which is nothing but the virtual space. Okay, so now this term cloud computing, what exactly does it refer to? Now we understand what cloud is, right? So for that is why I gave you the basic example of what traditional IT is first, so that you will understand in detail what cloud means now. Okay, so cloud is nothing but whatever we used to run in the physical world, now it is happening in a virtual space, which is nothing but on the internet. Okay, so now the cloud computing phrase, so what exactly this term means? So it is nothing but the delivery of different services through the internet. So now the services that you're building on the internet and the service that you're providing or delivering to the consumer, customers or the clients. So this process or this phrase, we call it as cloud computing. Okay, so which includes the data storage, which includes building servers or providing, compute services or providing networking services or also providing softwares. Okay, so all these things which is happening or which you're delivering via the internet or through the internet, we call it as cloud computing. Okay, so cloud-based storage makes it possible for you to save files to a remote database and retrieve them on demand. So now for you to exactly understand this term, there is a basic example that I could give you. Okay, so which is nothing but Google Cloud. Or let's say you have your own phone, right? So let's say you have a phone of 64 GB, okay, and you have stored many photos and videos and movies and everything. So let's say that there's a particular time, like when your number of storage, exceeds, and you will be able to see that red color mark. Okay, so now what do you do in nowadays? Like nowadays, what is the thing that we do? So we put it onto a Google Drive, or let's say if you're an iOS user, then you purchase, storage from iCloud, isn't it? So the term itself is iCloud. Okay, so you will not go and buy any extra physical storage, right? So you don't go and buy another phone of 64 GB or 128 GB, isn't it? So instead, you store your photos or videos on the Google Cloud or the iCloud, iOS. When it comes to iOS people, you use it on iCloud. So now all these photos, it is not remotely present on your particular device. It is present on the cloud, that is which is by the iOS people or the Google people. So they have their own cloud which is running on the internet. So you'll be storing it over there, and from your phone you'll be remotely downloading it whenever you need, or remotely uploading it. Remote in the sense, through your local computer, local device, you are able to access it, which is running on the virtual space, which is nothing but your internet. Okay, so this is the very basic example that we could give. So like your Google Drive or Google Cloud or your iCloud, where you store, you purchase particular space or storage and you store it there for a while. Okay, so that you can cut down the cost. So the main thing why we are converting into cloud nowadays is that you can cut down the cost. So that is one of the most important features when it comes to cloud computing. Okay, why? Because in a traditional IT infrastructure, if you want to purchase a server, the server is not something that is like that you can buy with thousands of rupees. Okay, it costs alone like lakhs and lakhs on rupees based on the workload that you want. Okay, so see, when you go for purchasing a laptop, let's say that you are a basic, let's say you are a scholar. Okay, you are doing some research work. So the only work that you will be having in your laptop is for, using Word or internet or something like that. So for that, you can go with a basic configuration laptop also with 32-bit operating system or 2 GB RAM and everything fine. But now on the other hand, just imagine that you're a gamer. Okay, and you want to play certain games which takes up a lot of space, or let's say which needs a better configuration system. So now as a gamer, you cannot go and purchase your 32-bit operating system, isn't it? So you need certain different configuration where you can have your, graphical card. We call some graphical card, right? So for you to play the games and everything, and you need a better configuration, better use of RAM. So again, the workload depends. So according to your workload, you purchase your laptop. The same way, according to the application or whatever application you're going to deploy on your server, accordingly, you will be purchasing your server. So if the server configuration is very less, then you have to pay, let's say, like, for example, let's assume that you're going to pay somewhere between 5 to 10 lakhs. Okay, you're purchasing. Now, if you want an server which can work or which can support a huge application such as Netflix. Okay, you know how Netflix is, right? So it is something like worldwide people are using, and you know how many request each and every second Netflix application gets. So now for such an application, you need a server with a greater configuration and greater workload. So now for that, you have to pay like crores and crores of rupees. So which is like really huge, isn't it? So now when cloud computing came into action, what happened? It cut down all the cost. So now instead of purchasing it, now what you do is you build it on the cloud, and you will be only paying for the number of hours that you'll be using that service. So we have a term or a phrase in cloud computing called as pay as you go pricing. Okay, so pay as you go pricing is nothing but per hour, like how many hours you'll be using that particular services. So accordingly you will be paying. Okay, again, the cost is very less. Like let's say if you're running your instance, or we call it as instance in AWS, the servers. Okay, so if you're running it for like an half an hour or 1 hour, okay, so the cost will be somewhere between 50 cents to $1. Again, depending upon the servers that you choose, it'll be not more than that. So again, if you are an organization and if you're running certain things, then again, though that particular discount will be applied over there. So it is cutting down your price to the most lowest possible way. And that is the reason everyone are right now converting their total infrastructure into cloud computing. That is totally they are converting it into cloud instead of going with a traditional infrastructure. Okay, so I hope you have a basic idea now what exactly cloud computing or the phrase cloud means, isn't it? So it is nothing but you'll be running or building your services on the internet, and people can access it via the internet. Okay, so now we know what exactly cloud is or cloud computing. We understood, like overall we have a basic idea, isn't it? So now before jumping on to AWS directly, or how it is linked with computing, or how it emerged, we need to see a few more models that we have. Okay, so in cloud computing you have two types of model. So one is deployment model, the next is service model. Okay, so you have three subtopics under deployment model. That is the way that you deploy, or the deployment method that you choose is of three types. You can either go with a public cloud or a private cloud, or also you can go with a hybrid cloud. So now what exactly does these three means? We are going to see that in the next slide. Then coming to your service model. So what type of service this particular cloud computing provides? So what particular service models does this cloud computing provide? So far we have like three. Okay, so these are the three most important models that we could take right now. Okay, service models. So you have IaaS, which is nothing but infrastructure as a service. Then you have PaaS, which is nothing but platform as a service. Then you have SaaS, which is nothing but software as a service. Okay, so first we are going to see the deployment model, and then we will cover the service model. Okay, so in deployment model, just like I mentioned, these are the three important things that we have. So you have your public cloud, you have your private cloud, then you have your hybrid cloud. Okay, so this public cloud is nothing but which is offered by third-party providers. For example, AWS, Azure, your Google platform, and IBM's Blue Cloud, Alibaba Cloud. So all these things are provided by third parties, and we utilize it or we use it. So it's not only like certain organizations are only provided that access, but instead each and every individual in this planet can use it. It is available or accessible by any public, anyone individual over the public internet. Okay, and also you can easily scale it according to your convenience. So now what exactly the scale is, we don't need to know that right now. Okay, so further into your sessions you will be learning all these things in detail. So for now you can just understand that it is easily scalable, that is expandable, and you can also reduce it. Okay, so all these things we'll be learning in the upcoming sessions, but for now you can understand that this is nothing but public cloud which can be accessed by any individual over the public internet. Okay, so it can be accessed by anyone. So just like the examples that I have given you, like any Google service providing platforms like your Amazon, let it be your IBM, Alibaba, Google Cloud, such so and so. Okay, so this is one of the deployment method that you can use. Okay, then comes the private cloud. So this private cloud is for only selected users on a private internal network. So this is bound to one particular organization or one particular team. So this cannot be utilized, or this particular infrastructure cannot be accessed by any other individual outside of that organization. And also when it comes to private cloud, it is into a greater security control, because again, why people choose private cloud is that into one particular organization, they want to make sure that their data are secured and there is no third party users who can access it or who can even know what is happening in there. So that is why they have their own set of cloud, that is private cloud, and it is bound to one particular organization and it cannot be accessed by any individual over the global level, unless or until they are one of the person in that particular organization. Okay. And also when it comes to private cloud, you need to have the traditional data center also. Okay, so the traditional data center is nothing but the traditional IT infrastructure which I mentioned earlier, because this is going to be a private cloud. And if you want to create or build your own private resources, then you need to make sure that you have your own traditional infrastructure where you can run all these resources through the internet using that data center or using that traditional IT infrastructure. But when it comes to the public cloud, all these data centers will be managed and will be created by that third party provider itself. Like for example, AWS. So they have their own data centers all over the world. So we are not managing it or we are not accessing it. The only thing is we just build our resources on the internet with the help of those data centers. That is connected to that data centers, we build our resources. There is no link for us and that particular data center. But when it comes to private cloud, the organization which runs that particular private cloud must have their own traditional data center or that IT infrastructure where they can build their own cloud resources with the help of that infrastructure. Okay. Now when it comes to hybrid cloud, so hybrid cloud is a combination of both public and private cloud. So there is no such thing as third type of cloud. So this is just a combination of what we say like is a public and private. So that particular organization can have their own third party providing public cloud as well as a private cloud, that is they can have their own data center as well as they can use the public cloud which is available for everyone over the public internet. Okay. And the responsibility for the security will be shared with among them. Okay, so public cloud and private cloud together, they will bring in the security. So whatever resources that you'll be building on the public cloud will be maintained or secured by the public cloud management themselves. Whereas if you are using private cloud, then again, all the security measures has to be done by yourself because it's completely managed by you and the data center is owned by you, isn't it? So now it also helps you to maintain tighter controls over sensitive data and processes. So this hybrid cloud is also one of the method like most of the companies are doing, because they're trying to slowly shift into cloud, isn't it? Cloud platforms like public cloud platforms like AWS, Azure and everything. So right now there are also companies who are using hybrid cloud, that is they own their own data center and also they use public cloud too. So there are companies who are in middle, that is just using hybrid cloud. So these are the three types of deployment model that you can host or you can build your resources on or deploy your applications or websites on. Okay, so I assume like you guys are clear about deployment model and what exactly is public, private and hybrid cloud. Okay, so now let's move on to service models. So we know what are the types of deployment methods that we have. So we can either choose any public platform or a private platform or a hybrid platform too. So now how can we what are the other service types that we can get out of all these types of cloud? Okay, so that is what our next topic is. So that is the service model. Okay, so now as I mentioned, you have all the most important three models, which is a service model, which is nothing but infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So that is IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS we call it. Okay, so the very first thing that you're seeing right now is on-site. So on-site is nothing but the physical traditional IT structure. Okay. So let's just go over this once, and I'll also give you another example or a basic analogy that you can connect with this particular tab that you're seeing right now. Okay, so the blue color marks or blue coded bars are managed by you, that is we have to manage it. Okay, whereas the red colors is provided or that service is provided that is managed by the service providers. Okay, so let's say like if you're using AWS, then there are certain services which is completely managed by AWS. So like that, we are going to see in these three different service models who are going to cover what, like how much we as a person individual have to manage, and how much that particular platform is going to manage. Okay, so now when it comes to on-site, let's say that you are running your own traditional IT structure. That is, you have your physical server, database softwares, and you have your own public like a networking software system like router, switch, hub, that, this, and everything. Okay, so now all these things, starting from your application to networking, is completely managed by you. No one else can do it, because it's a data center that you have created, which is traditional, which is like physically present. So everything is completely, starting from your creation of application, deploying it, the data which is running on that, the runtime, the OS, the virtualization, the servers that you bring in, and the storage, compute resources, and your networking. So everything is completely managed by you, and there's no one else that who can help you with that. Okay, so now let's say the second type, that is your infrastructure as a service. So in infrastructure as a service, what you're going to manage is just the application deployment, the data is running on it, the runtime, the OS, the middleware. Okay, so only these things you're going to manage. And the other things like virtualization, bringing in these servers, building these servers, or managing these servers, helping you with these storages and the networking. So all these things are provided by or managed by the service providers that you will be building these resources on. Okay, let's say that you're using AWS. Okay, so now AWS, what happens is you only have to look into all the first 5 tabs, that is from your application to OS. Then the rest, that is your resources that you will be building, will be completely managed by AWS. So there is no such service that is not managed by AWS. Each and every services provided by AWS is completely managed by AWS people itself. Okay, then comes your second, that is platform as a service. When it comes to platform as a service, how much do you have to manage, and how much do the service provider manages? So you only have to take care of applications and data. The rest of the thing completely is taken care by the service provider themselves. So you have to just simply build it, but managing it, auto scaling it, and everything completely is managed by the service provider themselves. Okay, so in the upcoming sessions, you will understand how it is going to change, or how it is going to be managed, because when we cover each and every resources individually, you will understand like how it is going to be managed by that particular service providers. Then comes your SaaS, that is your software as a service. So in your software as a service model, starting from your applications to your networking, each and every single step is completely managed by the service providers that you will be building your resources on. Okay, so now I'll just give you a basic idea, like, okay, now we are talking about infrastructure, platform, software. So now what exactly does these mean? Okay, we know that something is manage some of the processes managed by ourselves, that is we as individual, and some is managed by service providers. So now what exactly, or how exactly can we connect with this? So for that, we have a basic analogy I've taken out, where you can understand this particular model. So now we are going to take pizza as a service. Okay, so let's say that instead of cloud computing, we are going to go with pizza as a service. Okay, so now we have 4 types. So that is traditional on-premise, that is nothing but your traditional physical service that like we are going to connect it, the basic analogy. Then you have your infrastructure as a service, then platform as a service, then your software as a service. Okay, so when it comes to traditional on-premise, that is, you have to have your own dining table, you need to bring in your own soda, the gas that you'll be using, the oven, the fire, the pizza dough, the basic things. So everything from scratch, you will be creating it, and you will be preparing it, and you are going to have it. Okay, so that is what we are naming it as made at home. That is, you are the one person from scratch, you're building it from the kitchen to the dining table. You are going to build it completely. So no one is going to help you. So from scratch, you'll be making your own cheese, your own toppings, your own tomato sauce, your own dough you will be making. And the fire, you will be lighting your own fire. Then the oven is yours. So everything completely is taken care by you. Okay, so starting from the kitchen to dining table, the whole process is taken care by you. So that is what we call it as on traditional or let's say on-premise traditional structure made at home. So that we can connect with on-site. Okay, that is your application, your data runtime. So this is your homemade. That is, you are the one who is building it from the scratch, and you are the one maintaining it throughout. Okay. Then let's see what infrastructure as a service means. So when it comes to infrastructure as a service, your job will be only to take, to manage the dining table, to bring in soda, to provide your own gas, or to bring in your own oven and fire. But whereas what the vendor will provide, so the vendor will take care of bringing in the pizza dough, the tomato sauce, the topping, the cheese. Okay, so now your work is half to half reduced. So you are going to only provide an infrastructure, that is all these items. So to bake this pizza, I have all the infrastructure, that is I have the oven, I have the pizza and everything, but you don't have the ingredients with you. So the ingredients will be bought in and managed by the vendors. So your work is reduced half to half. Okay, so you'll be taking it and baking it. So this is what infrastructure as a service means. You will just provide the infrastructure, the other works will be done and taken care by the vendors. So that is why I mentioned the application. You're going to only bring in the infrastructure like application, the runtime, the OS. So only this physical, let's say like only this infrastructure is taken care by you, but the rest, the resources built on that particular infrastructure and everything is managed by the service providers themselves. So this is what we mean by infrastructure as a service. Then you have your platform as a service. So now what exactly is the meaning of platform as a service? So in platform as a service, the only thing that you have to do is just bring in the dining table and just bring the soda. That's more than enough. The other things will be completely managed by vendors. So they will be having bringing their gas, the oven, the fire, the pizza dough, all the ingredients that you need. And for baking that pizza, the oven, the gas and everything will be also provided by them. So the only thing that you will do is the place where you can sit and have your food, have that pizza. So that is what we call it as platform. So you will be only taking care of the platform, whereas the vendors will bringing the other attributes which is going to be connected with that. So that is what our PaaS means, that is platform as a service. So you will bring in the application, that is to host your application. Let's say we connected with Instagram, right? So when you go as platform as a service, you will be only bringing in the application, that is your Instagram application, and the data is required to run that. The rest, the OS, selecting the OS, the middleware, the runtime, the virtualization, building the servers, taking care of your storage, networking, all these things are taken care by the service provider themselves. So you only have to go and configure it, but the management and the auditing, monitoring, everything will be taken care of the service provider themselves. Okay, so I hope this is clear until now. Then let's see the final type of service model, which is nothing but software as a service. So when it comes to software as a service, it is a dine out. That is each and every step, starting from your dining table, bringing in your own dining table to the cheese, the basic ingredients, everything will be taken care of the vendor. You don't have to do anything. You just have to sit and eat. That's it. Okay, so that is what we call it as dine out. Okay, so here starting from your application to bringing in your data, runtime, networking, so complete package is there in your software as a service. So all these each and every steps in this is taken care by the service, whereas you don't have to manage anything. You have to just configure it, you have to keep it. So everything else is completely managed by the vendor themselves. Okay, so this is what our basic service model is. So according to the work that we choose or the project that we work on, we have to see what type of service models we might be needing. Okay, so let's say that you're going to go with PaaS, that is your platform as a service. Then you have to only bring in the application and data. So the rest will be completely managed by the AWS. So manage, when I talk about manage, it's not like they will be building it, they will be doing it. Nah, not like that. It is, you will configure the resource, but the management, because just creating that particular resource is not enough. Again, this is something like each and every second you'll be getting a ping request. That is, each and every second lakhs and lakhs of people will be trying to access it. So now accordingly you have to make sure that none of your servers shuts down, because again, it is something like it is something like computerized, isn't it? So it can go down anytime. Okay, so it can, there's a limit that it can it can bring in, or it can connect with the pings. So what happens is automatically it will go through a shutdown. So you have to make sure that even though one of the resources of yours is going through a shutdown time or a downtime, you have to make sure that there is standby, it operates everything, everything goes on time, you change or redirect your request to some other servers. So all these things can be, you will be only configuring it, but the management, but the managing or the maintenance and everything will be taken care of the service provider. So they will be auditing it. all over. So if there is even anything going wrong, so they will let you know, okay, here this something is letting going down, or there is some problem over here. So they will send you notification. So accordingly you can go and reconfigure it, or you can adjust it. So that is what we call it by managed by the service providers. Okay, so now this is what basic service model means like. Okay, so I hope like overall now you have a basic understanding of cloud computing. So earlier we covered what cloud computing is, or cloud is. Okay, then we covered the basic two models that we have, that is your deployment model, your service model. Okay, so we saw that under deployment model you have three types of cloud services or cloud types that you can deploy on, that is your public cloud, your private, and hybrid. Then we saw the service model that you can choose. So you have your infrastructure as a service, your platform as a service, and software as a service. Okay, so I hope this is clear for you until now. So we'll just go through one more basic understanding of these things in detail. Okay, so on-site is nothing but the physical equipment. We mentioned that homemade, like you will be creating everything from scratch and everything is going to be physically present in the real world. Okay, so that is your on-site. But when it comes to your IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service, we also call it as hardware as a service. That is, you will be completely providing the computing infrastructure, which is going to be managed over the internet. So the advantage of you using that IaaS is that it helps the users to avoid the cost and complexity of purchasing and managing the physical servers. So earlier I gave you the example of how much it is going to cost you, right? But when it is going to be as an infrastructure as a service, so what happens is the infrastructure that you're going to build over the internet is going to cut your cost down to a greater level. Like you're going to reduce lakhs and crores of money into just thousands or 10,000s, or like almost like a few lakhs of money. So that is why we call it as pay as you go pricing. Okay, so that is the term that we use in cloud computing. So you'll be going with pay as you go pricing. So you're purchasing of it, or finding a place or a go down to store your servers or other resources. Now again you have to pay the rent for that. So all these backend things are cut down, and it is going to be just, you will be building it over the internet, you'll be paying it according to the hours that you'll be using it, and completely managed by the service providers, and you don't even have to work anything on it. Right? So this is what your IaaS is. Your platform as a service is created for programmers to develop, to test, to run, and manage your particular application. So now when exactly does your platform as a service comes in? So platform as a service, we saw that applications and data are the only thing that you're going to manage. The runtime, the OS virtualization, the servers, and everything is going to be managed by the servers themselves. So now who will choose platform as a service? So the people or the programmers who want to develop their application, or to test, or to run their application, they will be using the platform as a service, because they just want to see how their application runs. They want to test it, they just want to see how it works. So for that, you are going to only bring in your application which you want to run, and the data that you want to run. The rest is going to be completely managed by the server. So your responsibility only will be taking care of the application that you brought in, and the data which is attributed to it. Okay, nothing else. So this is what platform as a service is. So again, each and every service model has its own use cases. So accordingly, you will be choosing your service models. Okay, then you have your SaaS, that is your software as a service. So which we also call it as on-demand software. So this is a software in which the applications are hosted by a cloud service provider. So in the first two, we saw that we have to bring in the application data and everything, and we have to deploy it. But whereas in software as a service, everything, like starting from your application to the end, the networking, everything is taken care and hosted by the cloud service provider themselves. So users can access these applications with the help of internet connection and a web browser. So software as a service is kind of like too much to cover, so that's why we are not going to cover in detail or in depth about it. So you can just understand that this is completely managed by the service provider themselves, and they host it, they manage it, they audit it, and they operate it. So to know more about it, we'll be covering that in the upcoming sessions. Okay, again, so each and every resources that we are going to create or build in the later sessions is going to be connected with one of these service models. So when we cover that, we'll get to know in detail about their use cases and how it's going to be effective. Okay, yes. So now with that, let's move on to the most important part, which is nothing but AWS. Okay, we talked about cloud computing, the different types of models that we have, the deployment models, the service models. So now what is AWS is doing in this? So AWS is the person who, that is the organization who bought in this cloud computing initially. they are the leader and still they are leading in the market. Okay, so now this Amazon Web Service is a subsidiary of Amazon. Okay, it is providing the demand on demand cloud computing platform APIs to individuals, companies, governments on a metered pay as you go basis. Okay, not only to any particular companies or government, but also to individuals. So if you see their management console, it is easily accessible and let's say user friendly for a particular individual too. So there is no complexity in understanding or to navigate through that particular console. So they have made it very easy for users to access it. So they, as I mentioned, are the leader in this cloud computing platform. So they started it around 2003. So that is when they first initially started with their providing their resources, or they started to provide the resources to others for use too. Okay, so now if you see the major revenue that Amazon people are getting from, not from their e-commerce but from their web services. So if you see, according to the current survey of Q2 of 2021, so about 13% of Amazon's total revenue is they are getting it through the Amazon AWS accounts. Okay, so they provide you the servers, that is your compute, the storage, the networking, the remote computing, the email option, the mobile development, security. So we cannot say that AWS is not integrated with anything. So when you go through the console, you will understand that AWS is integrated with each and everything, the machine learning, let it be your artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. So each and every technologies has been integrated with this AWS platform. Okay, so slowly we'll be looking into that. Okay, so for now, just understand that AWS is like all in on, let's say. Okay, so if you know cloud computing, if you understand AWS, then it's easy for you to jump into other technologies too, because slowly once you get into the MNCs, once you get into the corporates, they will be asking you to work on those projects too, like with machine learning, with artificial intelligence, with augmented reality, virtual reality. So we do have resources for specifically for such technologies too. So eventually you'll be learning that. But in this particular course, as a solution architect, your only ideal thing is to understand the resources provided by AWS and see how to configure it and what are the use cases of it. So these are the major 3 points that we'll be covering. Okay, so now we have a basic of history, like for AWS. Let's just go through that. Okay, just like it will not take more than 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, so now how exactly it came through. Okay, so how exactly AWS came to be, like earlier. So if you see, around 2000 is when these people came into action, because as I mentioned, running a traditional IT infrastructure is not easy. Okay, especially let's say when it comes to sales. Okay, so there is all these festivals and everything coming up, right? So when especially there is some sort of festivals, just imagine Amazon e-commerce, how many requests they'll be getting per minute or per second, because they are going to give this 50% discount, 70% discount, 80% discount. So at that particular festival time, you'll be having more requests. So that means you need to host or deploy your application into more number of servers. Okay, so when it comes to your traditional IT infrastructure, to again purchase extra number of servers, at least to rent it out, it's not really easy, because again when you purchase it, you need another space to host it. So you need another team to take care of it, another set of databases, like each and everything is going to be multiplying. So once that festival period is over, now again you will be reduced, the number of pings or requests that you'll be getting per seconds or minutes will be reduced. So now what you have to do, you cannot keep on running those many servers, right? So you have to maintain it, again the cost will be high. So you have to remove the extras which you have bought in earlier. So now what happens, your cost is going to become double, triple, and it's going to be wasted also. Let's say you also let's say like every 3 months or 2 months you do have some festivals or the other things, but again you not using that particular resource for a very long time is going to be of cost is too much, and the manpower is going to be too much. So it was like really hectic for them, or really very hard for them to do all these things. So that is when the CEO, the chief executive of earlier, his name is Andy Jassy. So he tried to work on this issue. So he brought in more number of software engineers, people and everything. So he created a number of groups or departments. And what he did is, he told that there are going to be few data centers which is going to be of AWS Amazon's, and you start to build the resources on the internet. So instead of going with the physical one, why not we build it on the internet? Because internet is a virtual space, it's an infinite space. So we can build a resource on that, and we will use our resources over that. We can build our servers on the virtual space. So why not we create that? So why not we do that? So that is when they started to discuss. So the discussion began in the year 2000, and slowly, eventually, what they did is they had a get together at yeah, so they had a get together, and what they did is they planned to resource it, or to make this service, because they started to create their own services, right? So now they know how it is, like, really, they got to know, okay, whatever they have found right now, or the innovation what they have did right now is something really amazing, and it might be something in the future. So it might have some lead in the future. So what they thought is they decided to bring this AWS, that is the Amazon service that they were providing, that they were using for their own company, to be another revenue source. So they separated it. So from Amazon, they separated this resources they were building. They hired more team for that. They started to build the resources and everything. They created a proper management console where people, like individuals or organization, can start building their own resources on the Amazon cloud, and they can utilize it for their own purpose. So that is when slowly, like around 2003, they left they started leaving one resource, which was like SNS, basic notification system. And then by 2006, they introduced servers, they introduced storage and everything. So each and every year they try to launch one resources, and people were really going crazy over that. So they really enjoyed, or they really started to because it was much flexible, and the complexity was also reduced, the cost was also cut down. So seeing that other companies, let it be IBM, let it be like Google, and everyone started to build their own service structures, their own cloud and everything. They started to revenue that out to, they started that as a separate business, along from apart from their e-commerce or whatever IT companies they were running from. So still after 22 years, so this was the basic innovation that Amazon did. So this currently, after 22 years, Amazon is the one who's leading in that. Okay, so there is no there's no way that after Amazon we could say that IBM is the second one who is leading, let's say, yeah. So even after 22 years, there is no other company who can get over, or cross AWS's revenue that they're getting in each and every quarter. So that is how they have made the console user friendly, and the concepts very easily understandable and less complex for other people to understand. Okay, so now when it comes to services, again, we know that what AWS does and what exactly cloud computing means and everything. So the services provided by AWS is nothing but the server. So there are so many, like we'll be covering 25 resources or services in this particular solution architect course. Okay, so they provide Amazon EC2, Amazon RDS, Direct Connect. So all these things you might not know. Okay, you might have heard before, but you don't know in depth. Do not worry, we'll be covering each and everything in detail in the coming classes. Okay, so this is what we are going to cover. So each and every services that we'll be working on is segregated into different departments. So for your deployment and management, these are the resources that you'll be using: your SQS, Elastic Transcoder, SES, AppStream, Cloud Search. And for your mobile service, you'll be using Cognito, Mobile Analytics, SNS, Simple Notification System. Enterprise applications, you'll be using your Workspace. So for each and every single workloads, you have different resources. Okay, so these are the foundation services. So these services that we have, like all over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. These 13 in depth we'll be learning, because this is a foundational service provided by AWS, and you really need to have a great knowledge on this. So when it comes to your certification point of view or your interview point of view, this is what basically everyone covers. And also for your deployment and management, cloud formation, code deploy, it's really very important. So we'll be covering 25 resources altogether in your next 30 to 32 hours of videos. Okay, so now when we talk about certification, so now I mentioned this course is going to be of solution architect level, right? So now how many certifications are there? So the very foundational certificate provided, or which is provided by AWS, is the cloud practitioner. We call it as the CCP. Okay, so in CCP, again, it is a very basic, like MCQs. So it's really easy, just like what are the resources and what is used for. So basically, like Q&A, MCQs, just that. So then you have your associate level. In associate level, you have 3 types of certification. That is your architect, operations, and developer. So we are going to cover solution architect. Okay, so again, there is not anything there's no such thing as you have to follow this step, like first you have to take the CCP and then go to your associate level and then go to your professional level. There is no such thing. So if you're really confident, you can directly write your solution architect level. And again, for this exams, you need to pay like $150 for you to crack this exam. Okay, so that is, which comes around like 12,000 plus GST in Indian money. Okay, so once you pass this exam, or once you clear this exam, the certification that you get from Amazon, the global certification, is valid for 2 years. So after 2 years, you have to again give your exam, because each and every month there is some updation happening in so and so basis, so and so resources. So just to keep you updated or with the current technologies or changes, they give you like 2 years warranty. Like after the 2 years, you have to again give your exam. Okay, so now I will strongly suggest you to go with either foundational or your associate level. So once you cover solution architect, it is easy for you to write your CCP also. Basically, CCP and solution architect overall, they have the same content. So there is when it comes to solution architect, you'll be learning in depth, but whereas in cloud practitioner, it is very basic. So I will never suggest you to go to the professional certifications, because for you to complete professional certifications, you need really hands-on experience with a proper corporate company. So just make sure that you have, like, it's not like, okay, you can give your examination even without getting or jumping into an industry, but you need to work a lot, you need to do your research a lot, because in your associate level and foundational level, you'll be having MCQ based scenario based, which you can manage. But when it comes to professional level, it is like at least 10 to 15 descriptive, that is short answers you have to give. And again, it is going to be way too complex, because the questions that you'll be getting will be on basis of the real-time projects that is provided by the companies and everything. So for that, I would deeply suggest you to at least have 1 or 1.5 years of industry experience and then give your professional certifications. For the basic level, you can go with your foundational or the associate level, especially solution architect level of certification, with hardly like 30 to 35 hours of training in one particular certification. You can really crack it. Okay, so I'll make sure that you'll be able to crack your cloud compute associate level of solution architect exam by the end of the 30th or 32nd hour. Okay, perfect. So now, yeah, so this is how your management console actually looks like. Okay, so we'll go into depth into our management console and the services provided and everything, or how to create your account in the very next session. Okay, so yes, so we're in the end of our slide. So I hope so far what we have done, the basic understanding of cloud, the term cloud computing is clear for you. Okay, because why I started from that is that the people or you guys who have chosen this course might be from the same background or might be from a different background. So just to make sure that you have a basic ideology or you have a touch of that root, so we have covered all these basic ideas. Okay, so from our next class or the next video onwards, we'll be directly jumping into the services provided by AWS. And like I mentioned, we are going to cover 25 resources in the next 30 hours.